The night was quiet, but not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that hides suffering behind polished walls. In the break room of the Silvercrest Hotel, the hum of the vending machine was the only sound. Marcus Lee, the night security guard, stood trembling as a woman in a sleek gray suit glared down at him. Her name was Evelyn Sharp, director of night operations, a woman whose smile could slice through bone. "Sign it," she ordered. Marcus hesitated. "Please, I haven't eaten all day." "Then sign it or you won't eat tomorrow either." His legs buckled. He fell to his knees, pen shaking in his hand, signing a paper he couldn't even read through the blur of tears. Evelyn grabbed his meal from the counter, opened the lid, and dropped it straight into the trash. "That's what happens when worthless people waste my time," she said coldly, heels clacking away as if the man on the floor didn't exist but someone else was watching. Hidden in the shadows of the hallway stood a man no one recognized. Thin glasses, cheap uniform, quiet eyes. The new receptionist. His name was Daniel Brooks, and what he was about to uncover would not just change the hotel. It would destroy everything he thought he knew about power, loyalty, and the cost of success. The email it began 3 nights earlier. At 11:47 p.m., Daniel Brooks, CEO and founder of the Silvercrest Group, sat in his corner office overlooking the city. His empire stretched across 11 hotels from Nevada to Illinois. He'd built it from nothing, starting as a bellboy at 19. Now 42, he should have been proud. But that night, pride gave way to unease as he read the message glowing on his screen. 6 words. No greeting. No signature. "They're hurting us at night. Please help." He stared at it, reading it again and again. Hurting, not mistreating. Not overworking. Hurting. A follow-up line sat beneath it like a cry from a sinking ship. "Check the night shift operations before it's too late." Daniel frowned. It could have been spam, or a prank, but something about the phrasing, it was too raw, too desperate to fake. He opened the staff analytics dashboard. The numbers stared back at him like a confession. Night shift turnover, 67% in the past year and a half. Day shift turnover, 12%. That wasn't a coincidence. That was a pattern. He opened resignation forms. Every one of them repeated the same lifeless phrases. Pursuing other opportunities. Personal reasons. Better schedule alignment. It was corporate code for silence. He knew because he'd once written the same lie himself. 2 decades ago. Back then, personal reasons had meant, "My boss makes me feel invisible, but I can't afford to speak up." He stared at an old photo on his desk, himself at 20. Standing in a uniform 2 sizes too big, smiling through exhaustion. He whispered to the empty room, "I promised I'd never become them." Then his phone buzzed. A message from Evelyn Sharp, his night operations director. Night shift performance up 44%. Cost savings higher than projected. Best quarter yet. Daniel's stomach tightened. Performance up. Cost savings up. Turnover through the roof. That math didn't add up unless people were being crushed to make those numbers shine. A choice that couldn't wait. He knew what had to be done. He couldn't send HR. They'd warn Evelyn before they ever stepped foot on site. Consultants would announce their presence a week in advance. If he wanted the truth, he had to see it himself. He had to become invisible again. 2 days later, Daniel looked in the bathroom mirror of the Silvercrest staff wing. The reflection staring back was a stranger. The fade was gone, replaced by a rough buzz cut. He wore an off-brand polo, thick glasses, and worn-out shoes that pinched at the sides. He was no longer the CEO. He was David, the new night receptionist. A woman with kind eyes greeted him in the lobby. "You must be new," she said softly. "I'm Linda, night training supervisor." Daniel smiled, careful to keep his tone light. "First day. Hope I don't mess up too much." Linda nodded, but her smile faltered for a moment. "You'll do fine, just be careful with the night crew." "Careful?" Daniel asked. She looked around, lowering her voice. "It's quieter after midnight. Just you and security. Marcus handles most of the heavy stuff. He's a good man. Been here a long time," her voice trembled. "He always manages." Then she walked away. That word lingered in Daniel's mind like a riddle. Manages. At 10:58, the glass doors opened. A tall man in a security uniform entered, shoulders broad but posture weary. His name tag read, Marcus Lee. "Hey there," Marcus said with a smile that tried to hide exhaustion. New guy? Yeah, Daniel replied. David, receptionist. Welcome aboard. They shook hands. Daniel felt the calluses, years of hard work, endless nights, and quiet endurance. And for the first time in a long time, Daniel Brooks felt something deeper than curiosity. He felt shame, because the man standing before him had been breaking his back for a system Daniel had built, and ignored. The weight of one night for the next few hours. Daniel watched. Marcus moved with precision, checking locks, calming guests, fixing flickering lights. Every 15 minutes his radio crackled with new orders. Parking lot, delivery dock, thermostat issue. Every command came from one voice, sharp-clipped, demanding. Evelyn Sharp. Daniel checked the schedule pinned near the desk. There were supposed to be 3 security officers on duty. There was only Marcus. When Marcus finally returned from a maintenance call, limping slightly, Daniel spoke up. You okay? Marcus smiled faintly. Old injury. Nothing new. You sure? Yeah. Just another night. He said it with the kind of acceptance that only comes after years of hopeless repetition. Daniel noticed the small blue notebook Marcus kept tucked under his arm. Whenever he returned from a task, he wrote something in it, quick and quiet. What's that for? Daniel asked. Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Just notes. He didn't know it yet, but that notebook would soon expose every secret buried in Silvercrest's shining marble floors. Because in those pages, Marcus wasn't just writing down tasks. He was building a record, one entry at a time, one wound at a time, one truth at a time. The night air outside the hotel felt colder than it should have. Daniel stepped out for a breath, but the sound of Marcus's radio pulled him back in before he could even exhale. Marcus, Section C, parking alarm again. Handle it. That voice, Evelyn's, wasn't a request. It was a command carved from habit. Through the lobby glass, Daniel watched Marcus jog toward the lot, muscles tensing from exhaustion and discipline. The man didn't hesitate, didn't complain, didn't question. 15 minutes later, Marcus came back, breathing hard. Sweat had soaked through his shirt, but he didn't even pause before the next order came. Marcus, loading dock. Delivery unsecured. Daniel checked the roster again. No maintenance staff. No porters. Nobody else listed. Just Marcus, doing every task that should have taken a team of 4. At 12:10 a.m., Marcus came through the lobby again. His limp was sharper now, but his face stayed calm. Daniel couldn't keep quiet anymore. You sure you don't need help? Marcus smiled like he'd practiced it for years. It's all right. Just part of the job. Then came the part that made Daniel's chest tighten. A black sedan stopped outside. From it stepped Evelyn Sharp herself, flawless in her dark suit, holding a tablet like a weapon. She walked straight toward Marcus. You started at 11, she said without looking up. It's been 2.5 hours. Yes, ma'am, she scrolled through her data. You've handled 6 tasks. That's an average of 1 every 25 minutes. Yes, ma'am. Our standard is 22. You're underperforming. The word hung in the air like poison. Marcus's voice didn't waver. I'll move faster. See that you do. And Marcus, she said, stepping closer, her perfume sharp and cold. Remember how lucky you are. Plenty of people would kill for this job. Try not to waste the opportunity. Then she walked away, heels tapping against the marble, her reflection sharp in the polished floor. Marcus didn't move for a long time. When he finally did, he pulled a small pill bottle from his pocket, swallowed 2 tablets dry, and walked back toward the staff hallway. Daniel stood frozen behind the desk. That wasn't management. That was cruelty dressed in professionalism. He followed a gut pull down the hall toward the storage rooms near Evelyn's office. Her voice carried through a half-closed door. Cut another guard next month, she was saying to someone on speaker. Marcus can handle it. He won't quit. His kid's sick. Needs the insurance. Makes him easy to control. A pause. Then laughter. Desperate people make the best employees. Daniel's hand tightened on the doorframe. For a moment, he wanted to burst in, to tear the illusion apart, to tell her who he really was. But he didn't, not yet. Not until he had proof. He went back to the desk, shaking with rage. Marcus passed by, professional mask back in place, voice steady as he wished Daniel good night. Daniel couldn't speak. He could only watch the man walk into darkness, unaware that someone was finally watching him back. At 2 a.m., Daniel slipped into the break room. It was silent except for the buzz of a fluorescent light. On the bulletin board, old memos overlapped newer ones. He scanned them until one caught his eye, an email printout half covered by shift schedules. Mandatory cross-training for all night staff. Security will assist with valet, maintenance, and guest services. Refusal will be considered insubordination. Signed, Evelyn Sharp, his jaw clenched. It was exploitation, written like policy. He moved to the digital clock-in terminal and used his CEO credentials to access restricted logs. The data painted a horror story in numbers. Clock in 9 p.m., clock out 8:30. AM paid 7 hours. Marcus was working nearly 12 hours a night and being paid for. Barely more than half, Daniel calculated quickly. 4.5 unpaid hours every night. Over a year, that was more than $15,000 stolen from one man. The door creaked. Marcus stepped in quietly. "Hey," Daniel said, forcing calm. "Just grabbing water." Marcus nodded, gaze flicking toward the computer before settling on him. His voice was mild, but his eyes said he knew. "Some things you're better off not seeing," he said. Daniel looked at him carefully. What if seeing them means fixing them? Marcus's lips twitched in something close to a smile. "Then make sure you really can." He left. And Daniel realized that Marcus wasn't just surviving. He was recording every injustice, one quiet night at a time. The next night, Daniel returned determined to find that notebook. He didn't know it yet, but what he'd find inside would burn through every layer of control Evelyn Sharp had built, and turn one man's suffering into a revolution. The following evening began the same way. Soft lights, echoing footsteps, endless tasks. Marcus was changing a chandelier bulb, high up on a shaky ladder. Daniel stepped closer, instinctively steadying it from below. "Careful," he said. Marcus glanced down, surprised. "You don't have to." "Neither do you," Daniel replied quietly. Marcus replaced the bulb, climbed down, and looked at him for a long moment. "You see too much," he said softly. "People who see too much don't last long here." Daniel held his gaze. Maybe it's time someone did. For the first time, Marcus's professional mask cracked. Just a flicker of respect, or maybe warning. Then he walked away, radio already calling him somewhere else. Daniel watched him go, his mind set like iron. He was done watching. Tomorrow, he'd start fighting back. And the next night, the fight would begin with a sound of breaking glass and a scream that shattered every lie Silvercrest had ever told. The scream came from the lobby. Daniel ran before he even realized he was moving. A drunk guest, red-faced and slurring, had a receptionist cornered against the counter. The young woman's hands were shaking as she tried to explain a billing error. The man raised his voice higher and higher until it turned into a threat. Then Marcus was there. He didn't shout or posture. He moved like a man who'd done this 100 times before. "Calm, steady, ready." "Sir, I need you to step back," he said evenly. The man sneered. "You think you can tell me what to do?" He swung, wild and unbalanced. Marcus sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and twisted him into a hold so clean it looked effortless. "Please call the police," he said to the crying receptionist. Daniel was already on the phone. 6 minutes later, the officers arrived, took statements, and led the guest out. The receptionist, still trembling, hugged Marcus in tears. "Thank you," she whispered. He only nodded. "Just doing my job." 20 minutes later, Evelyn Sharp appeared. Her heels echoed through the hall like a warning bell. "Marcus, my office now." Daniel followed her with his eyes as the door closed behind them. The walls couldn't hide her voice. "What part of avoid confrontation did you not understand?" she snapped. Marcus's tone stayed measured. "The guest was assaulting one of our employees. You should have de-escalated. Instead, you put hands on a paying guest. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. He hit me first, and now we're liable for damages. Do you understand what that costs me?" There was silence. Then Marcus said quietly, "I was protecting her. And I'm protecting this company," Evelyn replied sharply. "You'll file no report, no claim, and no mention of this to the police." "Understood?" When Marcus didn't respond, she added, "If you file any kind of workers' comp or incident report, you'll be terminated for insubordination. You'll never work in hospitality again." There was a pause, a long one. Then Marcus's voice broke slightly. "I have a son, 16. He needs medication every month. I can't lose my insurance." "Then make the right choice," Evelyn said coldly. The door opened a moment later. Marcus stepped out, pale but composed. He didn't look at Daniel, but the defeat in his eyes said everything. He walked straight to his locker, pulled out the blue notebook, and wrote something down before closing it carefully. Then he went back to work like nothing had happened. Daniel stood in the empty hallway, shaking. Every instinct screamed to intervene, to reveal himself, to end it now. But he couldn't, not yet. He needed every piece of proof. He needed to destroy her completely. He returned the next night, determined to see what Marcus had written. He found him in the break room again, sitting at the same table with the same meal, white rice and a few vegetables. Marcus ate standing, half his attention on his phone. He looked smaller tonight, like the walls themselves were pressing in. When Marcus wasn't looking, Daniel glimpsed the notebook open. The writing was small, neat, like a soldier's log. He could read only one line before Marcus closed it. Night 189, guest assault. 2 ribs cracked. No report allowed. Son needs mids. Stay quiet. Daniel had to step outside. The air felt thinner now. He pressed his fists to his eyes, forcing himself to breathe. That notebook wasn't just a record, it was a cry for help disguised as data. 1,000 nights of invisible pain, written by a man too loyal to stop fighting and too afraid to be heard. Before dawn, Daniel called his lawyer. "I need you here tomorrow morning," he said. "Bring the legal team. We're taking this entire system apart." The next night, while the city slept, Daniel unlocked Evelyn's office with his CEO credentials. Her password came from a sticky note hidden under her desk tray. She'd written Revenue 2024. He opened her email archives and typed Marcus Lee. The first email chain dated back 3 years. A regional manager had recommended Marcus for a promotion to assistant security supervisor. The man's record was spotless. Strong leadership, veteran background, respected by staff. Evelyn's response made Daniel's stomach twist. Marcus Lee is not a good image for a leadership role. Guests expect a refined appearance. Veterans, especially those with PTSD indicators, don't fit our upscale brand. Keep him on nights where guest contact is minimal. Daniel read the line again, each word like a punch. She had written it out, signed it, and sent it. The next email thread was worse. Any night security workers' compensation claims should be flagged for denial. Most of them have service records. Document injuries as pre-existing. If they insist, warn them about fraud investigations. Daniel stared at the screen, cold fury creeping into his chest. She'd built an entire system to deny help to the very people who protected her business. He kept digging. Another email, 2 months old, made his hands shake. Cost reduction successful. Security, valet, and maintenance consolidated under one role. Reduced costs by 43%. Eligible for $85,000 bonus. Marcus requested raise denied. Efficient at current pay. He leaned back, staring at the glowing screen. Evelyn Sharp had turned suffering into a business model. He closed the laptop just as Marcus walked in. "You okay?" Marcus asked, noticing his pale face. "Long night," Daniel said quickly. Marcus nodded, weary but kind. "They add up." He gave a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. "How many have you had?" "Too many," Daniel murmured. Marcus sighed. "I lost count years ago." When he walked away, Daniel's jaw tightened. Tomorrow morning, Evelyn Sharp would stand before the Silvercrest board and present her success story. Daniel would be there too, with her emails, her lies, and the truth she'd buried under 3 years of other people's pain. He didn't plan to watch her fall quietly. He planned to make sure everyone in that room felt the weight of every unpaid hour, every denied claim, and every tear Marcus had swallowed in silence. The boardroom of the Silvercrest Group looked like a palace of glass and power. Long table, dark wood, a skyline stretching endlessly behind it. 12 board members sat waiting as Evelyn Sharp stood at the front, tablet in hand, confidence carved into every gesture. "Good morning, everyone," she began, smiling with practiced charm. "I'm proud to report a record-breaking quarter. Night shift efficiency up 43%. Operational costs down nearly half. Our new optimization plan has set a company benchmark." The door opened. Daniel walked in. The room went silent. Evelyn's smile froze for half a heartbeat. "Mr. Brooks," she said with forced warmth. "What a surprise." "I didn't expect—" "Continue," Daniel said quietly, walking to the table. "I'd like to hear your full report." The tone of his voice, calm, almost gentle, made her pale. She hesitated, then clicked to the next slide. "By consolidating departments, we've achieved substantial savings while maintaining quality standards. Security and maintenance teams now operate more efficiently under one unified. Daniel stepped closer. By consolidating, you mean forcing one man to do the work of four without extra pay, correct? The projector light flickered across her stunned face. I'm not sure Let's be very clear, Daniel said, voice steady, each word deliberate. Marcus Lee, security guard. 11.5 hours worked per night. Paid for 7, every single night. For 3 years. The room filled with murmurs. Evelyn stammered, Our payroll system. Daniel turned to the board. I verified it myself. Entry logs, clockouts, badge swipes, everything. He plugged his laptop into the screen. Data filled the display. Rows of times, numbers, names. Here are his exact records. 11.5 hours, 7 paid. That's 4.5 stolen every night. Over $15,000 a year from one employee. Multiply that by every night worker under her management. He changed the slide. Now let's read her emails. A long silence followed as black text appeared on white background. The first message projected across the wall in letters that seemed to burn. Veterans, especially those with PTSD markers, don't fit our upscale brand. A woman on the board gasped. Another muttered, She wrote that down? Daniel didn't look away. She not only wrote it, she used it to deny a promotion to a man who served his country and gave this company 6 years of loyalty. He clicked again. The next email appeared. Flag night security injuries as pre-existing conditions. Use their military records to deny claims. A former prosecutor on the board stood abruptly. That's insurance fraud, she said sharply. And discrimination. Evelyn's face drained of color. You're taking these out of context, she said quickly. This is all misinterpreted strategy. Daniel's tone stayed quiet, almost too quiet. What context makes racism and theft strategic? He showed the third email, the one about the $85,000 bonus. Her words filled the air like poison. Reduced costs by consolidating staff. Marcus requested pay increase denied. Efficient at current rate. This, Daniel said, is what she called efficiency. Human beings stripped to exhaustion while she cashed checks built on their pain. The room erupted with whispers and outrage. Evelyn's voice trembled. Mr. Brooks, this is what truth, Daniel said sharply. It's the truth you buried under numbers. Marcus Lee has 2 broken ribs right now from protecting a receptionist from an assault. You threatened to fire him if he filed a report. You told him his son's illness made him easy to control. You made desperation your management style. Silence fell. The kind of silence that shifts air and makes people realize they've been sitting beside evil wearing a company badge. The board chair, Robert Harris, leaned forward. Evelyn Sharp, are these emails real? She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered. I was doing what was best for the company. Daniel's jaw tightened. You mean what was best for you? Your best quarter ever was built on stolen wages, fear, and silence. You broke people and called it leadership. The chair stood. You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Legal will be in touch. Evelyn's face hardened. You think this makes you look noble, Daniel? When this leaks, you'll destroy your own brand. You'll ruin everything you built. Daniel's reply was calm, unshakable. If exposing truth ruins this company, then it deserves to fall. 2 guards entered. Evelyn tried to speak again, but her voice cracked under the weight of the silence. They let her out, her tablet slipping from her hand onto the floor with a hollow sound. Daniel turned back to the board. We're done hiding behind profit reports. I spent 10 nights undercover in my own hotel. I saw what we became when nobody with power was watching. It ends now. Every single policy that allowed this will be rewritten. He paused, then added softly, But first I need Marcus Lee here. He took out his phone, dialed a number from memory. Marcus, it's Daniel Brooks. Come to the 15th floor conference room right now. There was a long pause on the other end. Sir, did I do something wrong? No, Daniel said, glancing at the board members watching him. You did everything right. It's the rest of us who failed. 10 minutes later, Marcus appeared in the doorway still wearing his uniform. The fatigue in his eyes met the disbelief in the room. Mr. Brooks? He asked quietly. Daniel walked toward him not as a CEO but as an equal. Marcus Lee, you've carried this place on your back for years. You protected people who didn't even know you were saving them. You've been invisible too long. He gestured to a seat beside him, not across. Sit. You deserve to hear what just happened. Marcus hesitated, then sat slowly, his hands clasped tight. Daniel opened the laptop again and turned the screen toward him. The email about his denied promotion glowed there. Marcus read it, lips tightening, eyes flickering across the hateful words. The line about veterans. The words "don't fit our brand," his breath caught. He pressed a hand to his mouth as if the air itself hurt. 3 years of questions. Why he'd been passed over. Why he was still stuck on nights, why no one ever listened. All answered in a single cruel paragraph. His voice broke when he whispered. "So it wasn't me," Daniel nodded. "It was never you." For the first time in over 1,000 nights, Marcus Lee wasn't invisible anymore. Marcus sat there frozen. The light from the screen reflected in his eyes, and for a long moment, no one in that room dared to speak. The truth had weight. You could feel it pressing against the walls, heavy and undeniable. Daniel slid an envelope across the table. "Open it." Marcus's fingers trembled as he tore the seal. Inside was a check. He blinked, then blinked again like his eyes couldn't trust the number written there. $340,000. "This," Daniel said, voice steady but low, "is what you were owed. 3 years of unpaid wages, compensation for injuries never reported, and the money she earned off your back. You don't have to ask permission to live anymore." Marcus's throat worked, but no sound came. His eyes filled. He covered his face, shoulders shaking, the sound of quiet sobs filling the room. No one interrupted. The board sat silent, witnessing something bigger than policy or profit. When Marcus finally looked up, Daniel placed another envelope beside him. "This is your promotion letter. You were supposed to get it 3 years ago. Assistant Security Supervisor. But that title doesn't fit anymore." Marcus frowned, confused. Daniel smiled faintly. "You're not just security anymore. You're the Director of Safety and Employee Protection for every Silvercrest property. You'll train every guard, review every policy, make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone again." Marcus shook his head, stunned. "Sir, I'm just a guard. I don't even have a degree." "You have something better," Daniel said softly. "You have integrity, courage, a kind of strength no classroom can teach. You survived a system that tried to break you, and you kept proof when it mattered most. That makes you a leader." Marcus stared at the letter, then at Daniel. "My son," he said, voice cracking. "He'll get his treatments. My mom, she can stay in her care home. I don't have to choose anymore." Daniel's eyes softened. "You don't ever have to choose between your family and your dignity again." For a long time, neither of them spoke. Marcus reached across the table and gripped Daniel's hand. 2 men, one who had suffered, one who had finally learned to see. Daniel nodded. "From today, we start rebuilding. New rules, new culture. Every employee will have a direct reporting line outside their department. Anonymous protection guaranteed. Fair wages for every extra role performed. We'll call it the Silver Policy." Marcus gave a small, disbelieving laugh. "You named it after the hotel?" Daniel shook his head. "No, after what it should stand for. Value, not shine." 3 weeks later, the changes began. Workers spoke up for the first time without fear. Schedules were balanced, pay corrected, and for the first time in company history, no one quit the night shift. Months passed. The lobby that had once felt like a cage now pulsed with quiet pride. Marcus arrived each morning in a charcoal suit, polished but simple, his ID badge gleaming. Director Marcus Lee, Security and Employee Safety. He ran the morning briefings himself. "Remember," he told his team, "you're not invisible. If you see something wrong, you report it. If someone tells you to stay quiet, you come to me." A young woman at the back raised her hand nervously. "What if management disagrees?" Marcus smiled, genuine calm. "Then management answers to me." The team laughed softly, but it wasn't humor, it was relief. As the room cleared, an older woman entered. Linda, the night trainer, her hair grayer now but her eyes bright. "You did it," she said. "You really did it," Marcus smiled. "We did it," she squeezed his arm. "You should be proud." He looked around the lobby, the polished floors, the soft morning light spilling through glass doors, the people moving with purpose instead of fear. "I am," he said quietly, "but I'm prouder of what comes next." The elevator chimed. A teenage boy in a wheelchair rolled out, pushed by an elderly woman with silver hair. Marcus's breath caught. His son grinned from ear to ear. "Dad, you said I could visit today." Marcus laughed, meeting him halfway, kneeling so their eyes met. "You're supposed to be at therapy." "Did it early," the boy said proudly. "Doctor says I'm improving. I wanted to see where my superhero works. The grandmother smiled softly, tears glimmering in her eyes. You look just like your father in that suit, she whispered. He'd be so proud. Marcus took her hand. You made me who I am. Daniel appeared in the doorway, smiling. Am I interrupting? Not at all, Marcus said. You should meet my family. Daniel crouched beside the wheelchair, shaking the boy's hand. Your dad changed everything here, he said. We're the lucky ones. The boy beamed. I know. He's the strongest person I've ever met. Daniel looked at Marcus, and the unspoken truth passed between them. They had both survived something they would never forget. Later that evening, Marcus stood alone in his office. On his shelf sat the old blue notebook encased in glass. The last page was open. His son had written the final words in neat handwriting. Night 1, no more surviving. Now we win. Marcus smiled, touched the glass gently, and whispered, We won. 6 months later, the Silver Crest Group had become the gold standard of fair employment. Wages rose, turnover dropped, and other hotels followed their example. Reporters called it a revolution in corporate ethics. Daniel called it overdue humanity. As for Marcus, he left work every day at 6 sharp. His son waited in the van, healthy and bright-eyed, his grandmother asleep beside him, safe and cared for. Marcus looked up at the hotel that had once broken him, the place that now bore the weight of his victory. His son asked, Good day, Dad. Marcus smiled at the fading sun. The best day, son. The absolute best. And as they drove away, the city lights shimmered like quiet witnesses. Justice hadn't erased the pain, but it had rewritten the ending. Because for the first time in his life, Marcus Lee wasn't invisible. He was free.